Hello, everyone. Let's talk about some killer McCartney Beatles belters. I'm going to talk about 10 of my favorites. Of course, this is all subjective. I'm going to come in at number 10 with the flip side of I Feel Fine from 1964, the song She's a Woman. First time I ever heard this track was in the Beatles film Help, and actress Eleanor Braun had a cassette and she pressed the button and She's a Woman was playing. This she was in some kind of underground bunker or underground passageway while the Beatles were above ground surrounded by tanks performing The Night Before and I Need You, but they just played just a few, I wouldn't say seconds, a few seconds of this track, and I just remember thinking what a cool track that is. And then later found out it was on the US version of Beatles 65 and had to go out and get it, but just a great, straightforward rock and roll track. Great belter from McCartney here from 64. She's a Woman, flip side of the I Feel Fine single. Coming in at number 9. And I'm just talking about the first verse. The first verse of The End off Abbey Road is fantastic before Ringo's drum solo and the 3 guitar interplay between John, George, and Paul. Just a fantastic, fantastic ending to the Beatles' career. And another just killer McCartney vocal. The End, the first verse from Abbey Road, coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, the title track from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, starting off with a killer guitar lick from McCartney, very thick sounding, a guitar sound that really hadn't been heard on a Beatles track up to that point. They were always changing up their guitar sounds, and the guitar sounds on this album sound very, very different than the ones on Revolver. But McCartney's just, I tell you, McCartney was an incredible guitar player. I mean, nothing against Harrison. Harrison was in his own right amazing, but McCartney really came up with some great guitar parts. Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band, he comes in just with that really, really awesome killer vocal. So Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, this lead-off track, coming in at number 8 on favorite McCartney's Beatles belters. One of my absolute favorite McCartney vocals of all time is on Let It Be. Side 2, track 1, featured on the rooftop performance, I've Got a Feeling. Such a great track. That midsection, I've never really understood what he was saying in the middle of that track, but he's just going off, balls to the wall. And then Harrison follows it up with that kind of descending guitar line. So good, so good. Probably my favorite track on side 2. Side 2 of Let It Be is one of my least favorite Beatles sides, but I love I've Got a Feeling, I think, the best on side 2. And I don't understand why they never included the complete rooftop performance on a single CD, or even included it in the Let It Be Super Deluxe box set. So they could, Apple could have made more money. They could have released it, and it would have sold. It would have been huge. But so far, it's never been released. It's absurd. It was never released in the box set or released as a single disc. But that 6 hour, or is it 4 or 6 hour Get Back documentary is amazing. That color, it feels like you're in the studio. It's a long movie to get through, but the highlight, without question, is the complete rooftop performance. It just gives you a chill up your spine. It's just amazing stuff. So I've Got a Feeling, one of McCartney's greatest belters, I think, of all time. Going back to Abbey Road for just another balls to the wall belter from McCartney. The 4th track on side 1, Oh Darling. My God, what a vocal, right? I wish McCartney had done more of these belting tracks throughout their career. I mean, one thing about McCartney, you got to admit, he was really a chameleon with his voice. I mean, he could do a lot of different shades and styles with his voice. When you think of like And I Love Her or Here, There, and Everywhere, so smooth sounding. Then you've got a song like You Never Give Me Your Money, which he offers up various different types of voices, like the balladeer voice in the beginning, then in the middle part, it's different and a little more raspy sounding, a little more just, anyway. Oh Darling, I read John Lennon said at the time that he could have done a better vocal. Now, nothing against Lennon. I think he's one of the greatest vocalists of all time. But how do you even like top this performance on Oh Darling? I mean, it's just an incredible track. And I'm one that thinks that they could have just gotten rid of Maxwell Silverhammer and just, I think that would have been a good segue, come together something right into Oh Darling. And maybe thrown Come and Get It in there in place of Maxwell Silverhammer, but that's just me. But just another shredder from McCartney, Oh Darling from the Abbey Road album, 1969. Oh, and while we're at it, coming in at number 5, just for the one line alone, Smiles Will Wake You When You Rise. That performance is probably my favorite moment of McCartney as far as a belter goes in the Beatles. When he goes, Smiles Will Wake You When You Rise during Golden Slumbers, that is really an amazing vocal. I mean, he sounds like an old blues man in that track, in that moment, for about, what does it go on for, about 6 seconds? But it is just a magical moment on Abbey Road. So I'm going to put Golden Slumbers at number 5, just for that one line, Smiles Will Wake You When You Rise. Coming in at number 4, probably one of the first 2 or 3 records I ever owned. The Beatles' second album. This is the original copy. I've had this probably since I was 5 or 6 years old. It was given to my sister from a friend of hers, and then my sister gave it to me. So it was really one of my first albums I've ever owned. And I'm talking about the track Long Tall Sally, the Little Richard cover. Wow. First of all, I mean, this really isn't an official Beatles album. It's a U.S. release, but I think this is one of the best U.S. releases. It rocks all the way through. It has some of my favorite songs of this era. Thank You, Girl. I love their version of Smokey Robinson's You Really Got a Hold on Me. The way Money goes into You Can't Do That, it just works for some reason. But side 2, starting with Long Tall Sally, that is one of the most amazing Paul McCartney vocals ever, I think. And I think it almost outdoes Little Richard's version. I mean, it's so, he really steps it up on the vocal here. So, and then, you know, oddly enough, when they were putting out albums like Revolver and going on tour in 1966, I mean, they had really gone beyond this style at that point, right? But they ended the show at Candlestick Park, their last concert tour show ever, with Long Tall Sally. And if you have the bootleg of the Candlestick Park show, you know that it just cuts off right in the middle. So, last song ever played by the Beatles on tour, Long Tall Sally. And it's coming in at number 4 on my favorite McCartney Beatles belters. Incredible stuff. Coming in at number 3 from the White Album, Helter Skelter. Wow, what an opening line, right? When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, and McCartney is just absolutely shredding his vocals. It's just an incredible track. Not one of my favorite Beatles tracks, but one of my favorite McCartney vocals. My God, he just really pushes it to the extreme. Other bands have covered it with less success. Motley Crue, U2. No one even comes close to this version. This is balls to the wall, and just McCartney at some of his best belting vocals ever. Helter Skelter coming in at number 3 for me on McCartney belters, Beatle belters. The flip side of the Help single, I'm Down, a track that should have been on the Help album. In fact, I think I'm Down would have been a great way to close out side 2 of the Help album instead of Dizzy Miss Lizzy. They should have thrown in I'm Down as the closer, knocked off Act Naturally and Dizzy Miss Lizzy, and thrown this track in, and maybe Yes It Is. That would have been a great side 2 of Help. Anyway, another track which ended 1965 U.S. tour shows, closing the concert. I'm Down, closing the Shea Stadium, the famous Shea Stadium show. Just another just balls to the wall McCartney vocal, just giving it his all. Lennon on that cheap sounding little organ, really great stuff. I'm Down, flip side of Help from 1965. And then number 1 for me, and I know it's filler. For me, though, it is killer filler. And I'm talking about Why Don't We Do It in the Road? Wow, what a great vocal, right? McCartney, I think he's playing on most of it. Is Ringo playing drums? I'm not sure. But anyway, McCartney's doing most of it. I think Lennon was a little jealous of this track. that McCartney went off in a different studio and pulled this off. But yeah, it's filler, but it's killer filler. And it's just the way it segues right into I Will. It shows two different complete sides of McCartney. The vocal to Why Don't We Do It in the Road, going to I Will, completely different vocals. And I think it's just, he really sounds like a really old blues man in Why Don't We Do It in the Road. It's just fantastic. I've always loved this track. I remember my mom coming in. I'd have this thing cranked up as a kid in my room. My mom would just come in and roll her eyes and just go like, what are you listening to? So anyway, Why Don't We Do It in the Road for me is number one as far as McCartney Beatles belters go. And then as far as an honorable mention, not a Beatles track, but I'm going to throw this in because it's one of my favorite McCartney tracks and one of my favorite McCartney belters. And it's off his first solo album, McCartney. I'm talking about Maybe I'm Amazed. I've heard live versions throughout the year, throughout McCartney's career. I've heard the version on, Wings Over America, which was a sort of a hit. In fact, quite a big hit in '76. Nothing compares to the studio version. I mean, McCartney's vocal, the urgency of it, the passion. I think it's just one of his most amazing tracks. It probably would have made a great Beatles track on a further Beatles album if they had continued. But no other version of Maybe I'm Amazed comes even close to this. I love his guitar lines on here. Everything it's just a perfect track, and it's literally near the end of the album. So Maybe I'm Amazed for me is one of my absolute favorite McCartney belters, though it's not a Beatles track. I think it's just fantastic and timeless. What are your favorite McCartney Beatles belters or McCartney belters? I only have a fraction of McCartney's solo albums, so I don't know his full discography. But let me know in the comments section which ones you would put in there. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.